Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Ashok. Today with this video, I'm going to start a new video series in which I will create multiple videos on scenario-based Salesforce interview questions, which are generally asked in most of the Salesforce interviews. And also we will discuss how you can answer these questions in this series. And I will cover questions related to Apex, Asynchronous Apex, admin customization, integrations, and LWC. And also I have created LWC specific interview questions and answer series in which you will find 5 videos which covers from basic to advanced LWC interview questions. So if you want to learn only LWC related question and answers, then you can refer those videos and you will find link in description. Okay. So let's start today's video and discuss on first question. Alright. So first question is related to batch class. And this is most important topic from Salesforce development and interview point of view. And there are lots of scenario based questions can be asked related to batch classes. So we will cover all of them in this series. Okay. So let's discuss on this question and what this question says. I have 3 batch classes and while running these classes, how to make sure that they won't overlap each other. Or this can be also asked in different words like can we set execution order of batch classes? So before going to answer any scenario based question, it is required to understand question clearly, and for that you may also need to ask some cross questions from interviewer. So as per this question, we have 3 batch classes and at runtime we want to make sure that execution of these classes should not be overlapped and should execute in defined order. Then if you will submit batch jobs individually like this, like one after another, and if you will say like these classes will execute in same order in which we submit, like batch class 1 will execute first, then second, then third, then this will be wrong answer. Because you know batch classes are the part of asynchronous Apex and asynchronous Apex will run in different thread as per server availability. And in Salesforce Org, 5 batch jobs can be activated at a time. So there may be a chance to execute these classes at same time. And also calling order can be anything. Like batch class 3 can execute first, then batch class 1, then batch class 2. Okay. Now let's discuss how you can answer this question. So you can say batch classes are the part of asynchronous Apex and we can't control order of execution after batch job submitted, but we can call batch classes one into another as per the order which we want to have. So if you can see in this image, to make an Apex class as a batch class, we need to implement database.batchable interface. And in this interface, we have 3 methods: start, execute, and finish. Those are mandatory to implement in this class. And this finish method will execute once batch job complete. So all the post-processing logic we used to perform here. So in our case, what we can do, we can submit our another batch job from here in this finish method, like this on line number 14. Here I am calling another batch class in this finish method, that is batch class 2. And in second class finish method, we can call third class in same way. Okay. So how this will execute? So once we will submit job for batch class 1, then start method of batch class will run to get data. And this execute method will process all the data in multiple batches. And once all the records get processed, then this finish method will get execute. And in this finish method, we can call our another batch class and this will also process in same way. And in finish method of second class, we can call our third class. Okay. So this is how we can set sequence of execution and avoid execution overlapping in batch classes. Okay. Now next we have, can we call another batch class from start and execute method as well? So as we have seen in last slide, to make batch chaining, we can call another batch class in finish method. But interviewer can also ask you to call another batch class from start and execute method. Then your answer should be no. We can only start another batch class from finish method, not from start and execute. Okay. And if you try to submit another batch class from start and execute method, then you will get this error like database.execute batch cannot be called from a batch start, batch execute, or future method. Okay. Now next we have, what will happen if error occurs in second batch transaction? Then further batch transactions will execute or not. So let's understand this question more. So let's suppose you have a batch class and working with 1000 records and batch size is default 200. So 5 batches will execute there. Now let's say we got error division by 0 in second transaction. So the question is, will further batch transactions will execute or not? So this is a very important question, and generally interviewers ask this question to test your knowledge about batch class execution. So let's understand again what this question says. So we have a batch class and working with 1000 records, and when you don't provide batch size while submitting batch job, then default will be 200. So there will be 5 batches and each batch will contain 200 records. And now first batch executed successfully, and in second batch somehow we got an error division by 0 and still 3 batches are pending. Now interviewer wants to know about batch 3, 4 and 5, like they will execute or not. So the answer will be yes, rest all the batches will execute, because each execution of a batch is considered as a discrete transaction. So whatever happened in last batch, that doesn't matter for the other batches. They are completely unrelated. So definitely batch 3, 4 and 5 will execute. Okay. Now next we have how to aggregate data in batch classes and pass them into another batch class. So as we have discussed, batch class processes data in multiple chunks, in multiple batches, and execution of each batch is considered as a discrete transaction. So the question is, how we can aggregate data between all the batches? So in this case, we can use database.stateful interface to maintain state across the batches, though each batch executes as a separate transaction. But with the help of database.stateful interface, we can retain values of the instance variable among all the batches. Okay, so let's say in this example, so here you can see we have specified database.stateful in class definition, and here on line number 5 we have a total amount integer property, and here in this execute method we are assigning object amount plus total amount into this total amount property. And due to this database.stateful interface, previous transaction state will be available and we will get value in this total amount property. Okay, and here in this finish method I am submitting another batch job and passing this total amount property. So this is how we can keep state between all transactions in batch classes with the help of database.stateful interface. Okay. Now next we have how to prevent recursion in Apex triggers. Okay, so this question is mostly asked into almost every Salesforce interview, because this is very common problem in day-to-day programming with custom triggers. So we should know very well about this. And when I ask this question in interviews, then mostly I used to get wrong answer from candidates that we can use static properties. Most of the candidates answer to use static properties to avoid recursion in Apex triggers. But this is not a good approach, and we should not use this in our applications. So let's discuss why we should not use static properties to avoid recursion in Apex triggers and what is the good approach. So when we use static properties to avoid recursion, then this will work only for the first batch of trigger, because trigger executes in chunks of 200 records. So for example, if you are working with 500 records, then our trigger will run in 3 batches for 200, 200 and 100 records. Okay. So if you are using static boolean property, then you will change the value of boolean property when trigger will get called for first batch, and for rest all the batches your code will not execute because you have already changed the value for that static property in same transaction. So in rest all the batches you will get updated value. So when you work with more than 200 records, then your trigger will not execute as expected. Okay, so this is the biggest problem with static property. And when you will have multiple trigger events like before insert and after insert in same trigger, then also your logic will not execute for after operations, because you already have changed the value for static boolean property. And also we have to create multiple properties to use in multiple triggers, because in same transaction multiple triggers can also get called. For example, when we are saving accounts, then we can change value for contact as well. Then triggers for both objects will run in same transaction, and if value gets changed by account trigger, then we will find updated value in contact trigger as well. So if you will same static boolean property in both triggers, then one of them will not get executed Okay, so there are many disadvantages of using static boolean property in triggers to avoid recursion. So we should avoid using this. Okay, now next approach we have using set of record IDs. So here what we can do, we can create a set property with ID data type and we can store all the processed record IDs into this. So using this approach, our trigger will work for more than 200 records and for multiple trigger batches as well, because right now we are checking new record IDs with processed record IDs. Okay, but if you have multiple trigger events in same trigger, like as Salesforce recommend to create only one trigger per object, then we have to add multiple trigger events in single trigger. Then in this case, set of record IDs will also not work, because trigger may call multiple times for same record as well for different trigger operation. For example, whenever we are going to insert a record, then our trigger will call multiple times, like for before insert and after insert, right? So in this case, we can use map of operation type and record ID. So this will work for more than 200 records, as well as this will work for all the trigger events in generic triggers. And I already have created a detailed practical video on this. So if you want to know more about this in detail, then you can refer that video and you will find link in the description. Okay. Now next we have how to preview LWC components on local system without deploying on Salesforce Org. So we can't develop LWC components using developer console. So to create LWC components, we have to use third-party IDE, and most popular is VS Code. So we have to install VS Code in our local system with Salesforce CLI. And now using VS Code, we can create LWC components on our local system. But to preview and test, we have to deploy them to Salesforce Org and need to add on any page. But it is time consuming process, because sometimes we need to make changes frequently and have to deploy again and again. So is there any way to test them without deploying to Salesforce Org? Then we can say local development server allow us to preview and test LWC components on local system without deploying to Salesforce Org. And Sketch.org is required to test component if they are calling any Apex method. But if you just want to test component without Apex method, then it will work with any kind of org like developer, sandbox and production. But we should not use it to test components in production, because it will save data directly into database and you may do unwanted changes while testing. So you should avoid using local development server with production environment. Okay. Now let's discuss how you can set up this local development server on your system. So after installing VS Code and Salesforce CLI, if you want to install local development server, then we have to run this command in command prompt or terminal window. So this command will download and install local development server in your system. And this command is used to start local development server. And if you want to see this in practical, like how to install local development server and preview components, then you can check out my LWC crash course video, in which I have showed this in practical and explained everything in detail. And you can find link in description. Okay. Now next we have, can we call wire method on button click in LWC? So generally we can't call wire method based on events. It will be automatically called by framework when component get loaded or when reactive parameter values get changed. Now if you want to call it on button click, then directly this is not possible. But what you can do, you can change the reactive parameter value. So framework will recall Apex method with change parameter values. So you can see in this image, this is the wire method to get accounts. And here I am passing search text reactive input parameter. And this $sign is used to make parameter reactive. And here in this button click handler, I am changing the value of this search text property. So whenever the value of this search text property will get changed, then wire method will automatically again get called. Okay. So in nutshell, if you want to call Apex method on some events, then you should go with the imperative approach. And still, if you want to call wire method on some events, then you can change reactive input parameter values. So indirectly framework will call wire method again to refresh data based on updated parameter values. Okay. Next we have, can we call batch class from lightning components? Then your answer should be no. we can't execute base directly from Lightning components, either LWC or Aura. In this case, we have to create Aura enable method, and here we can submit our base job like this. And here I'm using database.execute base to submit base job and returning job ID. Okay. So directly without Aura enable methods, we can't run any kind of Apex code from Lightning components. Okay. Now next we have what kind of relationship is there between account and opportunity or contact. Okay, so this is very interesting question, because over here in account and opportunity or account and contact, we have a special kind of lookup relationship, or we can say hybrid relationship. This means it has feature of both lookup and master detail relationship. So when you will check field type in opportunity object, then an opportunity object has non-mandatory lookup field of account, but it behaves like MDR. Like in account object, we can create roll-up summary fields with opportunity or contact. And also in backend, there is a relationship property cascade delete between contact and account, which is always set to true. And you will find same cascade delete property between objects in master detail relationship. So for any relationship where cascade delete is set to true, a child record is also get deleted automatically when parent record get deleted. Okay. So in nutshell, we can say this is a special kind of lookup relationship that behaves like MDR. And here interviewer may also ask you one more cross question, like can we create this kind of relationship in our custom objects as well? Then your answer should be no, we can't create it by ourselves. This is available only with few standard objects. Okay. Now next we have what are the advantages of using named credentials over remote site settings. So this question is related to integrations, and when we want to call external APIs from Salesforce, when we want to make call out, then API endpoint should be added under remote site settings, else Salesforce will restrict call out for unregistered domains due to security reasons. Now the question is, what is named credentials? Then we can say this is the advanced version of remote site settings, where we can provide authentication parameters with API endpoint in single definition. With the help of named credentials, we can provide authentication parameter and base API endpoint at single place, and also don't have to expose username and password to low-level classes, where we are writing our callout methods. Instead of that, we can set up authentication in named credential and use that named credential while making callout. And also whenever if something will get changed like URL and authentication parameters, then only we have to make changes in named credential, not everywhere in callout methods. So if we specifically talk about advantages of using named credential, then we can say we can specify the API endpoint and its required authentication parameters in single definition. And remote site settings is not required if we are using named credential, because we can add our API endpoint in named credential only. And also don't need to provide username and password everywhere in code. And it is easier to maintain, because if something will get changed in future, then only need to make changes in named credentials. Okay. So we should try to use named credentials over remote site settings, because there are lots of advantages of using named credentials. Okay. So that's it for this video. And in next videos of this series, we will cover more scenario based interview questions. So please like this video and subscribe my YouTube channel, so you will get notifications for new videos. And thanks for watching this. I will see you in next video.